known that?
Well, I don't know. They keep their secrets quite well. I assume they have a mole very high up in the organization. Because what you have to understand is that the Chinese secret society also has deep roots in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I should give you a brief history of these people, and I recognize them from the history books. So when they approached me, I already had some knowledge about them.
Now, may I ask another question? How did they approach you? Did they call you and say, Ben, we'd like to talk to you, or did they just come knocking at your door? What happened?
I got a phone call from a gentleman who said he'd like to meet me and talk about something important.
Was he speaking English or Japanese?
Japanese.
Okay. All right, so let's go back and do a little history on this organization now.
Okay. Now, the Ming Dynasty was like the high point in Chinese history. This is when their civilization reached a peak. And they were invaded by some very uncouth barbarians known as the Manchus. And when this happened, the Ming army, they were betrayed by a border general. They became an underground organization, a secret society.
The Ming army,
aim was to, so there's two branches. There's the old Ming army and the old Ming navy. And these are their descendants. And what happened was they tried to, they wanted to overthrow the Qing and restore the Ming. And their first big attempt was what we know as the Boxer Rebellion. And then later, they got huge help from the Japanese royal family, from the Meiji.
That's M-E-I-J-I, correct?
Yeah, so this is the people who modernized Japan. So we're talking about, at the beginning of the 1900s.
Okay, so the Meiji family modernized Japan, beginning of the 1900s. All right.
Well, yeah, it was a sect of, it was a bunch of Freemasons set up by the Rothschilds.
That's how the Rothschilds first got involved with Japan. Okay,
right.
and China, I understand.
Yes, but the, unknown to the Rothschilds, or maybe they knew at the time, I don't know, but the Japanese helped the Chinese secret society overthrow the Ming Dynasty. They also got help from Chinatowns all over the world, where they have their bases.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how Sun Yat-sen overthrew the last emperor.
Okay. So you're saying, in a way, Sun Yat-sen was a tool of the Masons, who were a tool of the Rothschilds.
Well, except that, that in appearances is like that. But you see, the Asians don't particularly want to be ruled by white people, so it doesn't really work, in fact, on the ground.
All right.
They don't really, they take their money, but they're not going to, do everything they're told to do.
But that was a political mechanism in so many words. That's how Sun Yat-sen assumed power. Okay.
And he was later ousted. And there was a lot of, as you know, the Japanese invaded China, and they were trying to take it over, and there was this huge battle over the future of the planet, which evolved into World War II. But, they were fighting in China, a proxy war, for over a decade before World War II started.
Very few Americans understand that.
Yeah, okay. What I'm saying is that the secret society ended up fighting the communist Chinese and being defeated and going underground.
So they were part of Chiang Kai-shek's apparatus.
Well, they were
supporting
allies
him,
with Chiang Kai-shek, but they were not part of his apparatus.
Okay, they were fighting with him, supporting him, and he lost. Okay. And then Mao Zedong was
financed by the Soviet Union, by the Rothschilds on that side of the equation.
All right.
And then they kicked out the connection in the 1960s, and China became independent from Rothschild or Freemason control.
Was that a big shock to the Rothschilds at the time, or did they see it coming?
No, it was a big shock. I mean, there's all this talk about who lost China, and this was a major blow for them. But they never really controlled China. Like I say, the Chinese were onto them and onto their game, and they weren't going to be fooled.
How did the British East India Company and the Opium Wars and all of that play into this in the 18th and 19th centuries?
Well, I mean, the story there was that the British, when everyone else was buying lots of tea, and they had nothing to pay for it with, and so they invaded China and forced them to buy opium, so that they could have their tea. So that was a war of invasion, but they couldn't control China. You know, it was just too big for them to manage. So they instead just threatened them and kept them as a sort of vassal state in that sense.
Well, they had enough trouble with the United States before, and of course it was known as the colonies, but yes, so trying to control China, I can see, would be virtually a pipe dream.
It's worth noting that Skull and Bones were, as you know, opium and slave traders, so they were deeply involved in all this.
Mm-hmm. A lot of Zionists were in the slave trade business too. A tremendous Zionist Jewish participation in that filthy business.
Sure. Well, there's still slave trading going on to this day, as we know.
Well, that's called white slavery, and I don't know how many tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of women and children are sold into slavery through various conduits that often run through Israel every year.
Sure.
All right. Stand by, Benjamin, if you would. We'll come right back. Conversation with Benjamin Fulford. And do visit his website and do visit Rense.com. Look for his article about the Freemasons and their history as well. It's in the 5th featured story down. The secret history of the Freemasons in Japan. Be right back. Okay, and back with Benjamin Fulford. We're going to pursue the issue of Christianity and its future, or lack thereof, in a few minutes, but we're doing a little background now on the Chinese secret society, which actually came to the rescue, as it were. Ben would either be filthy rich now or dead.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it is, I think, just to divert a bit, but it is a sort of what's known in folklore as making a deal with the devil, right? Mm-hmm. They offer you, like, I would have been finance minister and I would have made billions of dollars looting the Japanese to finance genocide.
Right.
But anyway,
which goes back to our earlier comment about reducing the world population, which we're going to get to, so we had a lot of time tonight. And that, of course, goes back to the actual printed projection of reducing the world population called Global 2000 by 75 or 80%. But we'll get back to that in a few minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, well, when I met the Chinese, at first I didn't know what to make of it.
Where was your meeting with them, Ben? Did they come to your place and sit down and talk to you?
No, in a hotel room.
Was it one person or two?
Two people.
Male, female?
Male.
Dressed
in pretty ordinary, not very expensive looking clothing.
Okay, and they sat you down. Now, you had never heard of this secret society before, correct?
Oh, I had. I mean,
but not in terms of it being active to the extent that it might pop up in your life. You'd heard about it in the past.
No, I'd studied Chinese history. So the last I'd heard about them or read about them in the history books was the green and the red gangs that fought the communists in Shanghai in 1949.
That's my point. All right, go ahead, please.
So for me, it was like a ghost from the history books appearing in front of me.
Gotcha.
And they told me that they had membership worldwide of 6 million. Including 1.8 million gangsters, all the Asian gangsters in the world, and 100,000 professional assassins. Mm-hmm. Now, I wasn't sure whether or not to believe these people, but I flew to Taiwan, and I met the heads, and they were surrounded by hundreds and hundreds of men in black suits who looked like gangsters. I mean, and I was given some martial arts displays, so I believe they're not lying when they say they have 6 million members, and a lot of them are gangsters.
Now, are they headquartered in Taiwan, or did they just pick that as a meeting place for you?
No, they are headquartered in Taiwan.
Huh.
But it's a very secret organization. I mean, they don't really have a building you can say this is their headquarters. Okay,
well, they've been there since Chiang Kai-shek fled there in 1949, I guess, and before that.
But they've infiltrated the Chinese government right up to the Politburo level. And they're all over China, and they're all over the world.
Okay.
And they also have, the Japanese Yakuza gangs are also part of this. Many of them.
The Yakuza?
Yes, Yakuza gangsters. Mm-hmm. There's about 150,000 of them throughout Japan.
All right. And let's talk just for a moment about their projection of power in the United States. There are a lot of Asians now. There are some Asian gangs. Certainly there are Chinatowns around the U.S. In every big city there's a Chinese community. And are they projecting power through those various locations?
Absolutely. They're everywhere. And the other thing is that you got to remember that the 2/3 of the membership are scholars.